New US-backed Palestinian Authority Prime Minister Mustafa forms cabinet. Okay, interesting, potentially. He will serve as foreign minister and prioritize an immediate ceasefire and Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, Palestinian news agency Wafa reports. Amid mounting pressure from the U.S., appointed Mustafa, U.S.-educated economist, longtime financial advisor before the PA. How U.S.-backed is this so-called U.S.-backed cabinet? According to the media line sources, Fatah and other factions aren't happy with the choice of Mustafa as PA prime minister and are suspicious of his government. That's understandable given the pressure emanating from Washington, Ramallah-based political analyst Faris Sarfandi told the media line. A lot of things are unclear, and the PA is at a junction. If it stands up to the U.S. and moderate Arab governments, then they risk being sidelined, said Sarfandi. The U.S. has welcomed the formation, okay, signaling its acceptance of the cabinet lineup. See, I think that this could potentially actually be pretty important. If the United States is signaling acceptance to a new Palestinian autonomy government, it is another signal that the United States is politically aligned with the continued autonomy of the Gaza Strip, as opposed to Israel just completely annexing it. You know, the United States probably wouldn't put their toes in the water on this. They wouldn't signal any support if they wanted, or even expected maybe, Israel to just flatly annex the Gaza Strip and kick out all the Palestinians. The Biden administration has called for revitalizing the West Bank-based PA in the hopes it can administer the Gaza Strip once the Israel-Hamas war ends. Wouldn't that be nice? He's a bookish bureaucrat and has a history of anti-corruption. In fairness, that's what the Palestinians need, okay? Pardon me for sounding a little reactionary on this, but the Palestinians have had a wretched history of being led by people who don't have their best interests in mind, you know? There's a reason why Hamas leadership is in Qatar or whatever. As long as the Palestinian people are led by, like, militant jihadists or people who are, like, hopelessly revolutionarily idealistic in the face of an insurmountable enemy, Israel. You know, they're just it's about, like, do you want them to have good lives or not? A bookish bureaucrat might make it a lot harder for Israel to do this stuff in the future. Maybe not. It's a shot. I mean, it's pretty difficult with a guy like this to go like, oh yeah, this is Hamas too, this is ISIS, blah blah. It would make sense for their leaders to rule from exile even if they weren't so shitty, right? No, it is horrible for morale and for the legitimacy of your government if your leaders are out of the country. Horrible for, like, it basically delegitimizes you, like, of your own volition. It makes it look like you're just, like, skimming money off the top, which they are. You know, you need them to be there, to be community leaders. Keep in mind, the Gaza Strip is so small that you can walk up and down it. you can travel between the cities in the Gaza Strip on foot at a decent pace. You want to be there. You want to be a community figure who's seen and led. You know, you want to be a leader on the ground. Yeah, I don't know how effective this is going to be, but it seems like this would be a good step towards getting Israel to back off. It's a step. I'm not saying it's enough of the step, you know. But this only matters if Israel can be stopped from pushing into the Strip militarily. Yeah, of course, but this is part of that. Signaling the emergence of a new legitimate authority is part of the political pressure that would keep Israel out. I'm not saying America is doing enough. I'm only saying that this is part of that process. In a statement late Friday, U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said the U.S. looks forward to working with the new group of ministers to deliver on credible reforms. A revitalized Palestinian authority is essential to delivering results for the Palestinian people in both the West Bank and Gaza and establishing the conditions for stability in the broader region. See, this language signals to Israel that America is some kind of politically committed to the autonomy of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. According to U.S.-based Middle East expert Hassan Awad, the U.S. position is clear. It wants the Palestinian Authority to replace Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and it wants it to resume its responsibilities in the coastal enclave, in the so-called day-after scenario, he told the media line. I don't necessarily think this is going to pan out well. Well, okay. I don't know if this is going to be as effective as I want it to be, but I think there is a chance this ends up being significant. Does that make sense? The possible significance of this ranges from not at all to very. Awad added, with the lack of popularity of President Abbas, he was forced to take steps to satisfy all to keep his rule. In an op-ed published, Joe Biden wrote that an end to the current war is not peace. He wants to revitalize Gaza Strip and West Bank under a revitalized Palestinian Authority, Biden wrote. Netanyahu has said that they do not want that. The 88-year-old Abbas was elected president of the Palestinian Authority in January 2005, shortly after the death of his predecessor, Yasser Arafat. You've probably heard of this. That was the last time the Palestinians held a presidential election. He has led the PA for 18 years, but has only limited authority over the West Bank and none over Gaza, where the PA was violently ousted by Hamas in 2007. The PA's popularity is waning among Palestinians, with a recent poll published by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research showing dismal support in the West Bank for Fatah. Hamas has warned Palestinians in Gaza against cooperating with Israel to administer the territory, saying anyone who does will be treated as a collaborator, which is understood as a death threat. Hamas has rejected the formation of the new Palestinian government as illegitimate, calling instead for all Palestinian factions, including Fatah, to form a power-sharing government ahead of national elections. Vosh, I'm kind of confused. Historically, Israel, with U.S.'s implicit support, constantly removed legitimate institutions and authorities in the Strip while promoting and funding Hamas to give a credible reason for their genocide. How would this guy in charge be different? Is it just because everyone is finally against Israel now? Fundamentally, yes, I think so. Though, keep in mind, America has never really liked Netanyahu. Historically, America has backed Israeli power, and Netanyahu has increasingly backed Hamas as the default leadership of the Palestinian people because he wants to use them as a justification for genocidal violence and apartheid. However, at this point, Netanyahu's government and Israel's behavior with the Palestinians is a massive political liability for America. All Israel is doing right now is destabilizing the region. Israel's behavior is provoking condemnation from other Arab nations. Skirmishes with Hezbollah, the Houthis have been acting up. Egypt has had like radical fundamentalist groups that have been like getting edgy about the whole thing. You know, they moved troops near the border in case of a flood of refugees from Palestine. Like, Israel's behavior is not to America's interest. So they have lost the mandate of heaven. And while, because of political pressure in the West, the liberals don't feel comfortable outright denouncing Israel, at least not yet, and Biden has been a Zionist for longer than I've been alive, by a long margin, that doesn't mean their support is infinite. And this is a pretty clear signal that Biden is putting his weight behind, at least to some extent, a portion of his weight behind, the formation of the Palestinian Authority being the new power in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip now that Hamas has been, yoinked. Of course, at that point, Hamas would be a barrier to progress in the region. Israel doesn't want to kill Hamas. Israel just wants to kill Palestinians, so they can't exactly be trusted to draw that line. The best case scenario, then, would be the Palestinian people themselves stop collaborating with Hamas and are given the tools to oust Hamas power from the Strip, and the Palestinian Authority took power in their stead. Maybe. I wonder if they could murk the Hamas leadership in Qatar. That would probably cause too much trouble. But the PA isn't from Gaza. You said governing from abroad is horrible. Well, they're governing from abroad because they've been violently ousted from the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Authority, like Hamas, ousted them and said they would kill people who collaborated with them. Whereas Hamas leadership left the Strip because they just wanted to be fat and wealthy, in safer cities. The Palestinian Authority has legitimate reason for being, out of them. Just the term US-backed is basically a death knell in Palestinian politics, Vosh. I don't see this going anywhere. That is true, and that is the big question, right? Can the new Palestinian Authority in any way signal its legitimacy to the Palestinian people? No, Archgrave, I agree. Nothing moves forward, even if Israel backs off. Nothing can move forward unless the Palestinian people accept the Palestinian Authority and reject Hamas. Unfortunately, everything Israel has done over the past such and such years, but especially the past 6 months, has reinforced the necessity of Hamas in the mind of the Palestinian people. Israel has really committed itself to projecting the impression that they are just unambiguously genocidal no matter what. How do you make the PA popular? Not without extracting massive concessions from Israel. And how do you do this right now? I don't know if you can. The only way this really takes root is if America, through the Palestinian Authority, gets Israel to back off or so on, something like that. Gives them some kind of power, something to work with. Yeah, Vosh, Hamas's popularity in the region massively surged. Yep. And how can you blame them? Look at what monsters the IDF have been. How could you possibly blame them for wanting to just like, fuck it, we're dead anyway, holy war? I don't know if there's any way for the new PA to effectively ingratiate itself to the Palestinian people. It is all Israel's fault? Yes, of course. They're the ones with the power in the situation. This is interesting, though. Israel and the USA? Well, everything is the USA's fault. That's just redundant. You're just being... You're just wasting time pointing that one out. Come on. I want this to end. I want the bloodshed to end. I want the Palestinian people to have a path forward. It is obvious that Hamas is not the path forward. The best case scenario that is still capable of happening in this situation is not one led by Hamas. Hamas was never good. I think that revolutionary violence against Israel is morally justified from the Palestinian perspective, but Hamas has always been, anti-Semitic, jihadist, not real revolutionaries. So, their leadership have grown fat and arrogant from abroad. I have never supported Hamas, even as I understand the moral righteousness of violence for liberation. Hamas cannot exist in any good timeline moving forward. What does revolutionary violence look like? Nice try, Fed. No, seriously, think for a second. Think of all the many, many ways the Palestinian people could resist that don't involve slaughtering civilians, jihadism, anti-Semitism. Think of all the things that Hamas has done. This is why Netanyahu wanted Hamas to be the only power center. This is why Netanyahu backed Hamas. This is why he spoke of wanting them to be the power in the Strip, designated other power centers in the Gaza Strip as being terroristic in nature, even though they weren't. All of it was because Hamas is an optics nightmare. Of course they are. More so than the IRA were for the British, certainly. What if Hamas tried to strike government institutions and military targets? Well, if they had limited it to that certainly would have been better. Yeah, that would have been less immoral, I'd say. I'm very concerned with how many people are pro-Hamas. Well, on a moral level, Hamas have done far less harm than the state of Israel. So, we're kind of dealing in lesser evils here, as we always are. But yeah, no. Again, Hamas has always been a poisoned apple to the Palestinian people, and Netanyahu has always arranged for them to be exactly that. Yeah, how blatantly genocidal they are. Am I cognizant? Do you believe the state of Israel has a right to exist? I don't think any state has a right to exist, right? What does right to exist mean? Power centers exist where they are, borders fall where they may. We live in the world we live in. We try our best to fix things. Even if Israel ceased to exist, would I believe Palestine has a right to exist? How many ethnic minorities would Palestine oppress? Do you think there's a single Middle Eastern nation that doesn't have blood in its hands? I don't like to phrase it in Israel does or doesn't deserve to exist. Israel is a settler colonial project, and a particularly barbarous and out of time one, to be sure. But does it have a right to exist? What does that mean? I don't know. I don't know what it means to have a right to exist as a nation, as a concept. Nice non-answer. That was a better answer than your mind could appreciate. You wanted a simple, yeah, no, yes, no, because your mind is small and smooth. I reach out to you with greatness. For a moment, your mind grazes against an idea larger than yourself, and you get mad at me for it. Jesus. Yeah. The only way the new Palestinian Authority gets any kind of legitimacy is if America flexes behind them, so to speak. Yes, people who live there deserve to live a safe and happy life. All of them. Everyone, everywhere. I don't know if I feel hopeful, but I'm glad something is being done, even if it doesn't lead to much. No academics right now, liquid nitrogen. Hamas is worse than Israel. They make civilians suffer even more than... Raspberry sorbet, respectfully, you're delusional if you think that Hamas has caused more suffering than Israel. The scale, it's a matter of scale, if nothing else. Israel is a full militarized state, Not in total. Oh, you mean pound for pound? I don't know how you'd even measure that, really. Yes, I don't know how you'd measure that. I mean, we have reports of rape from IDF soldiers. Of course there is. I'm not interested in that measurement. Black in the Borg, why is it every time you donate or comment, it's because you want me to intersect with some nonsense drama? What is this? Hey, not now. Hey, now, not every time. A significant portion of times.